So much for nominating me to make this video. As anyone who's seen John's previous video will know, this is a chain of videos which he started for the 700 members of Given What We Can to sort of explain to each other who we are, and so we can get to know each other and see the background of the movement a bit better. So my task in this video is to explain a few things. First of all, to tell you a little bit about myself and my background, then how I found out about Given What We Can, and how I came to take the pledge and actually join Given What We Can, which I think is those two very different things. And finally say a little bit about what I find most exciting about the organisation before nominating some more people to do the same thing that I'm doing here. So first of all, my background. As I'm sure you can hear, I'm English. Specifically, I'm from Warwickshire in the Midlands, and even more specifically from Stratford-upon-Avon, which some people will have heard of because it's where Shakespeare's from. I went from school there to from secondary school there on to university in Oxford, and I'm an undergraduate, currently a third year undergraduate studying classics. And I know John for him to nominate me to make this video. I obviously know John through Given What We Can, specifically the September internship scheme, which you might have heard of, which I did for 2 weeks this autumn. They're based in Oxford, and that is incidentally great. I recommend that to everyone. How I heard about Given What We Can. From here on in, I think my story is almost the opposite of what John told you. So he was saying very much that he sort of conceived of the ideas of effectiveness himself, and then came to making a video about them. That came to join Given What We Can later through coming to Oxford and meeting Michelle Hutchinson. So he'd had those ideas himself and had read the philosophical background from Peter Singer beforehand. I'm completely the opposite story. I sort of crashed into effective altruism head on before having thought about it at all myself. So I'd done charity work in Oxford. I was working, there's a lot of homelessness in the city, so I was doing stuff with that. Just, I guess, out of a sense of middle class guilt, whatever you want to call it, the reasons people do charity stuff ineffectively, let's say. And then crashed into it head on, specifically in the same way that so many people do online. Peter Singer's famous TED Talk, which if you haven't seen it, I'll stick a link below. It's fantastic and everyone should watch it. And that is, as you'll see once you've watched it, or if you've watched it before, it's immediately compelling. It's based on the book A Life You Can Save, I think, and once you've watched it, there's not really like a lot of, I couldn't really see a lot of point, there's not really many ways to argue with it. So I sort of crashed in from there and sort of hastily began researching and Googling for things. Obviously, The Life You Can Save and Give Well and Given What We Can sort of dominated. Quite quickly made the decision that it seemed like something I wanted to do, which I think is an easy decision to make once you're, at that point I was going into the second year of my degree. Because I'm a student, I don't have a lot of money, so in a sense there wasn't a huge amount of immediate action. It was just sort of almost like a hypothetical decision I took, and was able to sort of make the decision almost outside my current lifestyle, which in some ways makes it easier, and yeah, it's quite easier for students, I think, than people who are already earning properly. So I quite quickly began giving 10% of the small amount I had as a student. Initially I gave to Give Well. I didn't think I really understood the system, but soon cancelled that and gave through Given What We Can instead, because of gift aid, tax relief reasons. Yeah, so I guess that's how I came to join, very suddenly, and without sort of meeting anyone in person. When I did, as a sort of side story, finally meet someone from the organisation in person, it was Ben Clifford. Sort of the term after I joined, a few weeks in, I found out that we had a university chapter. I went to a talk in, I think, the 5th week of term from Toby Ord himself. And there I met Ben Clifford, who used to be, I think he used to do communities for Given What We Can, although I'm not absolutely sure. And he asked me how I was involved, and I told him I'd recently taken the pledge. I don't think I've ever seen anyone look so confused in my life. It turned out I hadn't, basically. I'd messed up the paperwork, and I just sort of went ahead and told Ben Clifford that I was a member proudly, despite him knowing that I wasn't. I got an email from him a few days later, like, so we've got some of your paperwork here, but haven't actually joined, hence the confusion. So I think that was when I finally officially became a member, about 2 months after I'd actually told him after I'd attempted to first join as a member. And then I guess what I find exciting about it is slightly different to what I find compelling about it, because I think I sort of view it as, originally I found the sort of Peter Singer convinced me it was sort of something that I kind of had to do, a completely compelling argument for how we should behave. But then there's also separately what I find exciting about it, and I've read up a lot more on I've done ethics modules and so on at university since, and I still find it exciting and compelling. So it's not just that I feel I have to, I also want to, and I think there's sort of two different angles to that. One of which John's already covered, so I won't sort of talk about that, kind of a better use for money, really exciting thing about what affects for altruism. But then a different angle is the warm glow effect, which is so well attested as the reason people give to charity. And I think there's good scientific psychological reasons to think that it's definitely a quantifiable effect in humans. I think a good analogy for the effects of altruism on the benefits of the warm glow effect is if putting a fiver on your mate's just giving page once a year is it's like a firecracker. It's just one explosion of the warm glow effect. That's great, but you wouldn't use it to heat your house. But effective altruism is more like a roaring log fire, which is just always in the background. So it's you get the warm glow effect permanently, which is just from purely selfish reasons. It's fantastic. So I think that's everything for me to talk about here. I think this video is already plenty long enough, and I've just finished by nominating Trudy Lynn, who I know through mostly from we both in Oxford. We work the Oxford chapter together, and Dumitriu, who's the founder and president of the Manchester chapter.